Hello, good morning and welcome to this session, which is about the AI and the future of work. And before I go into a little bit more about the session and introduce it, I just want to say, well, I hope you had a fantastic day yesterday. I'm sure you're going to have a fantastic day today. Deirdre Hughes will be giving a more formal introduction at 2 o'clock, so please look out for that as well. I think it'll be absolutely brilliant. And thank you, Evelyn, for saying you're looking forward to it. We're looking forward to you enjoying this as well. So what I'd like to say is that we've got an hour here. You probably saw, many of you may have seen yesterday or just the last day or so, that the World Economic Forum has just released its latest paper on the future of work. And we're going to be really kind of examining in this particular session some of the ideas that we have around the future of work. And for this session, we'd like you to keep it interactive in the sense, please put things in the chat. Please introduce yourself in the chat. And if you've got any questions, I'll be picking those up as we go through. So who am I? My name is Nima Pasha. I'm Director of Career and Professional Development at Henley Business School, where I've also founded the Future of Work Foundation at Henley, which is called WOW, World of Work, where we look at the impact of changes on the world of work. Okay, so who we have coming up after me, as I'm going to give a little introduction to some of the thinking that we've got. We've got a fantastic insights following me from Professor Graham Atwell, who'll be probably showcasing Chatbot as well to you. We've got Professor Fusan Akok all the way, who's going to talk about some of the work that she's done, leading work that she's done, and she's based in Turkey. And we've also got Marie Zimanov, who's the CEO of Career Thought Leaders, and really insightful piece on career technology as well. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from all of those as well. So good morning again to you from me, Nima, and I would like to just start now by just going through kind of maybe framing what we want from this morning around the future of work. So if I can go to my first slide. This is my introduction, and this is me looking up in the night sky at Henley Business School with the stars above me and thinking great thoughts about the future of work and careers and what we can do. And before I start, if we could put up the first poll for the people who have made it and they're sitting in their pajamas, eating their toast or porridge or whatever, or depending on where you are around the world, tuning into this, maybe we could start with a poll. So, Simon, you're in rainy Essex, Jersey, over there. Wonderful to see all the interaction already and thing. Would you mind just having a look at this poll and think about, will remote working, in your opinion, enhance team skills? If you could just complete that, and then I'll pick that up later on. Okay, let's have I'm going to come back to that in a second to really think through about that in a lot more detail, just to see where we go with that. So on the when we pick it up later, a lot of people are thinking it will enhance. In fact, most of you think it will enhance. It'd be interesting if you put into the chat why we think it will enhance team working when we're not close together. So some of the research I've done shows that it might inhibit some of the teamwork because we're not together with each other, although what it does is connect people from around the world. Right, the poll is gone. The people who didn't see the poll is gone, but lucky for you, we've got more polls coming up. Right, shall we go to my second slide, if that's okay? I thought would be good because we've all got different backgrounds. Some of you, no doubt, are complete experts in the world of work, but I thought what I'd do is just give us a little overview, a little class of a future of work, and see if we're all on the same kind of page. We'll get us all on the same page to some extent. What we often talk about when we think about the future of work, some people call it, oh, there it is, it's back again, those of you who didn't get a chance to vote earlier, please vote in this poll and we'll have a look at the results. So we started off, people often call this the fourth industrial revolution. So what was the first industrial revolution? That was steam-based machines back in the 18th century. And then we moved into the second industrial revolution, which is the 19th, 20th century, when we started getting mass production through. So when we started getting the Ford motor car, and people moving into sort of a whole range of different kind of manufacturing production. Then we move into the third industrial revolution, which is in fact around computer and internet-based knowledge. So that's the third one. So when we started with some of the web-based work as well. And now we're in the fourth industrial revolution, which is all the people say this is the beginning of and the changing of how computer-based technology is really moving forward. And that's looking at things around artificial intelligence and the software that's associated with that, and the kind of information that we might be working for in that way. So well, obviously the term big data is used a lot. The amount of data that we're dealing in now is kind of huge in terms of relation to what we had in previous time. IoT, standing for Internet of Things, is that with the advent of 5G, we'll be able to access a whole range of different things from our phones. And not only that, places like hospitals will be able to perform much faster, much better, and in the terms of delivery that they can get. And obviously things moving into the cloud. What we have now is a whole range of different technology, from computer vision, the things that organizations are able to do in terms of Spotify, for example, give you recommendations based on what you watch and what you look at, because it's scanning the information that you look at. But also further, people can actually use sentiment analysis, which is something, a type of AI tool, which can analyze your Twitter feed. And at Henley Business School, including other places, there's a great piece of work done to analyze the Twitter feed of Donald Trump to see how it impacts the finance markets, and see if stocks go up and down because of the reaction to it. So there's a whole range of artificial intelligence, particularly used in healthcare as well. And the data that's come through from Google to suggest that scanning of cancer cells is done much faster, much more efficiently by AI than it is by radiologists. If I can, what I'd like to show you now is a little bit more about perhaps a future world, perhaps a future world post-corona, to see if we can see what the world looks like. It's kind of looking back and looking forward. I'm going to show you this video now. This is produced by Visa, and they've envisaged what the future of work would look like in terms of finance. We haven't got any sound for that. Rob, since we can't have sound for that, I'm happy for the video to be left, if that's all right. We can just go. Great. Okay. So that was the video. I can explain that. Sorry for that, for the sound not coming through. But hey, technology is future. The robots aren't going to take us over yet. I like it when things go wrong. Because then we think, the robots are not quite here yet. So that was a video by Visa. And what they were showing is the use of fintech in delivery of finances, that you'd go into your car with other people. It's a futuristic thing. And you go to the cinema and everything is paid for by wallet pay. But also what it was going to do, the technology, it was scanning through to look to see where the nearest where you could pay for your upgrade to parking, you could pay for your cinema tickets, you could pay things to each other, and it was done so seamlessly, much more than previously. And you could pay a premium to get a better parking space, all through your phone, or through the computer on your in your car. It was done very differently. And if we think as career professionals if we're going into that, if that world is coming through quite quickly, and if we think, well, this is something that we need to move forward on in terms of fintech skills, Visa and other fintech firms are saying, not only do you have to understand the software that's behind this, understand the kind of technology behind this, what they're saying quite specifically, you need to have a passion for something called voice skills. Being able to know that the future isn't just going to be based on passing information through your phone and your computer. You're going to be going to use your home hubs, you're going to be using your Siris, you're going to be using your Alexas much more frequently, and the kind of communication skills are going to change further. So it's just something to bear in mind. And that video, if you get a chance to look at it, it's just a fun video, but it can make you start thinking about how Visa are thinking about their future. If I can have the slide after the video, please. And I think, and we've just talked about, you said you think remote working will increase or decrease. So the World Economic Forum's report that's just out on the future of work jobs has said, as we all know, COVID will impact AI and automation with further disruption on the horizon as we move to a mixture of remote and remote working, but also how we're going to access skill development, especially if we need higher skilling for all this disruption that's further ahead. I have my next slide, please. And our experience of retail, as we know, is quite different. Industries are changing quite quickly. So this is just retail as I put through, but there's a whole world is changing quite rapidly, and therefore the need for different skills, the need for different approaches is also changing as fast too. Next slide. Chris Whitty does this. Is it Chris? Like, next slide. So, and the research that we've done is that we've found that if we start looking at those AI assistants that I've mentioned that you might be using to order your products through retail, I just saw the report from ASOS out earlier today that their profit margins have gone up, but they say they're going to be badly impacted in the future and how people buy. So even though things are looking good for them, it's not so good. And one of the reasons they're thinking is that we move forwards to AI assistants, and those, as I mentioned, are your Google Hubs and Siris and so on. They're going to come into the workplace, they're going to be working with us, and our research suggests it's going to give us back 12 working days a year. And I think, obviously, if we were thinking what we would do those 12 working days, my suggestion very strongly would be skilling and reskilling, because nothing stays the same, as we know. But have the next slide. So that's it for me. I'm going to hand over to Graham at 12, who's going to take it forward, and you're going to get a really rich experience from these next speakers that are coming up. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm doing quite a lot of work in education on AI and what AI means for the future of work, because of course it's not just for the future of work of people that we're giving careers advice to, but it's for the future of work as teachers, as careers professionals. How is our job going to be affected? And one of the first things people usually talk, AI is a very abstract concept in many ways. And people always say to me, can you give some examples? What might it mean? So really, I want to give you an example from some work we're doing. We're developing something called Career Chat. And I'm especially interested from a research point of view in the interface between humans and AI. AI can do some things very well, but essentially AI is a machine. AI is stupid, right? It's a very fast machine. Humans may not be so fast at calculating large amounts of numbers, but can do empathy rather much better. So I'm very interested in how that interface works between humans. Anyway, the project I'm going to talk about is Career Chat, and it's being developed as a research and development project funded by Nesta, in association with the Department of Education for England. It's to develop a chatbot for careers. The project's run by Deirdre, DMH Associates, and Pontedusky, which is my organisation together. And we have a prize for doing it. And I'm going to try and see if we can watch a video of Deirdre presenting a very short version of what the project's about. If the video doesn't work, it will be a rather not so exciting video, but we'll try it, and if not, I'll talk you through it. Yeah, I think we go off the video and back to me. Thank you. Okay, let's talk you very briefly through it. I've got no notes on this, so it can be off the top of my head. It's to develop a career chat. The aim of the project is to work with adults, or the original aim is to work with adults whose jobs are at risk due to AI and automation. And those adults should ideally be low paid with low skilled. So it's to how we can use technology to support those people. In fact, since then, COVID came along, I think the potential audience for a potential group of users is wider. So our idea is precisely to develop a chatbot. Chatbot can be accessed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And there's an emphasis in the call for projects, but also in our approach to do it, on providing access to good labour market information, which can help people take decisions around where they want to go, be it looking for a new job, be it upskilling, looking at courses, etc. And one of the findings around labour market information is that people want more local labour market information than was available presently. So there is emphasis on how we can access local LMI and make that available as part of the chatbot. And our proposal is that the chatbot will be launched, I'll say a bit more about this, in 3 cities initially. And we're working closely with careers organisations and other organisations in those 3 cities. The 3 cities are Newcastle, Derby and Bristol. So if any of you are based in Cardiff, not Cardiff, Bristol, Newcastle or Derby, then the chatbot's coming to you soon. One of the initial things we had to do, let's have the next slide, I think. Yes, can we get the next slide up? One of the first things we did is think about what kind of chatbot we wanted. What's the chatbot going to be like? And you can use this if you want to have a bit of interaction here. What's your experience of a chatbot? I can tell you what my experiences were prior to the project. Pretty dire. I will name names. Lloyd's Bank chatbot, which I, like all the banks, with those telephone numbers. If this, press this. If this, press this. Not great experiences. But of course, the chatbots are coming in and becoming more common. There's a chatbot called Do Not Pay. I think Do Not Pay, I think it's based mainly in London, and is a lawyer offering advice, as I remember, on car parking fines or not fines. So it's a robot lawyer. There's a sexual health chatbot. There's Bob the Bot, which is, I think, working careers. And there's an excellent bot, Edna, I think, which is being in education, which is Bolton College. And I'd recommend anyone to go to Bolton College and have a look at that chatbot. And I think you can even have a play with it and try it out there. So chatbots are coming in. Of course, a posh word for a chatbot is a conversational agent. Yeah. And one of the things actually we did is both Deirdre and me enrolled on a course from the Open University a MOOC to design a feminist chatbot, an absolutely brilliant course. And we learned a lot about what this character would be. And one of the core things they did was say, okay, can you think of a person you think has the character of the chatbot you'd like to have? And we've done this exercise ourselves. I will reveal what our project team came up with. Jurgen Klopp, the coach of Liverpool Football Club, won our prize as the person who most embodied the character of the chatbot we'd like to see. But I say in other exercises we've done, we've found that we've David Attenborough comes up frequently as the chatbot character people would like to think. There's a lot of issues in this. Okay, I don't know. On to the next slide. On to the next slide, please. Okay. Now look, one of the big issues right from the start has been, is Chatbox a danger to us? We're careers professionals. Are we going to be out of a job in 3 years' time? Are we going to be replaced by artificial intelligence? And our bot is actually, there's two kinds of bots, to get a bit technical. One is scripted bots and one is AI-driven bots. Our bot is actually a hybrid and uses a fair amount of AI in it. So is this a threat to people's jobs? We are very quick to emphasize it is not. Career services are already under a huge amount of pressure. And with the present crisis are only likely to come more under pressure. Our idea is it is a conversational agent, or we could put it a digital assistant, which will work together with careers professionals. And whilst we originally thought that we might be referring people from the bot to careers professionals, a number of advisors have talked to us from the National Careers Service about them referring people to the bot, and especially when it comes down to things like action planning and finding out information about different jobs and finding out about the labour market and finding out about courses. Bots can be very helpful and assist in that process. But I have to say, we're still working on finding what we call the sweet spot for the individuals, where the individuals come in, where the humans are in, when we should be referring. And that's part, I suppose, of the research based on the practice of what we're doing. And as I said, we're working in the 3 cities. We've got National Career Service providers, we've got local authorities, we've got LEPs, we've got colleges, we've got employers. And we're looking at how best to capture local LMI and embed this within the bot. Oh, the bot's called CC. We were trying to find a name, and it's interesting, should the name be female, should the name be male, should the name be in between? We actually got CC, the name CC, from our original project application of Careers Chat. So we were using CC for short, and we put an I in it, so it's CC. I'm also interested, CC, as I found out this morning when I Googled the name, is the name of a chain of 500 pizza restaurants in Texas. But apart from that, we seem to have limited competition in the UK at least. And let's go on to the next slide. Well, here's our sort of graphics designs. You can see now CC. CC, the little powerhouse to support your career. I sort of like that as a strap line. And you can see the sort of things CC does. If you like, these are modules. In fact, it's designed, the technology is a modular technology. Help you find courses, courses both from nationally funded and courses from local adult education services, which sometimes aren't as well publicised as they ought to be. Labour market information, what's going on in your local labour market, what jobs are in demand, what's the pay around those jobs, build your own CV. We help you build the CC. Job search, actually find jobs through CC. Find out about self-employment, find out about skills assessment. Since then, we've added it, since we got these graphics done, we've added a new one from our consultations with people, which is all about volunteering. And here we got my last slide, which doesn't show up very well, does it? But you can download these slides later and look at them. This is actually showing some examples of the chat operating in CC. The chat operates in text on the first version, we'll go audio after that. I think that's about it from me for now. According to something Deirdre sent me, we have some interesting reading which should be available in digital resources. It follows this conference. I'm not quite sure what, but I'm sure it's going to be really interesting. And I'm going to hand over now to Professor Applicant for her presentation.
Thank you, Graham. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. And I hope you all have a nice morning. And thank you so much for inviting me for this very exciting session. Maybe we could just start with the poll. Is it possible to put the poll on, Mark? Maybe we can just set the stage by the poll. Thank you. Services available to all need to be multi-channeled or blended, comprising face-to-face and online provision. Do you agree with this? Do you disagree with this? Or still thinking of which way version of the blended services? So I would like to hear about your perspective, your idea on this. Thank you. Yeah, while we're waiting for that, maybe I could just start my presentation, Holistic and Personalized Guidance, Human Intervention. As Graham and Nima pointed out, there are new approaches, new innovative tools, big data and artificial intelligence are new approaches underpinning the design of career development support services. Career support services are rapidly being digitized to include distance and e-based policy and practices delivered either by phone, online interviews, one-to-one, or groups, webinar sessions, and or chatbots, as we have very briefly discussed, designed to provide personalized services. And these new tools hold promise in helping to provide end users with high quality, tailored online career information and advice, and give rise to increases in self-directed learning that can transform people's lives. Holistic guidance, augmented guidance, and personalized support will require some form of skillful human intervention. And this certainly applies to complex and deeply social activities like counseling. First, I would like to set the stage why we need to have skillful human intervention. First, I would like to point out Helmut Zelotes, late Helmut Zelotes. Could we change the slide, please, Mark? We could just start by a taxonomy of Helmut Zelotes from ETF, from European Training Foundation, on career guidance intervention models. He talks about different intervention strategies: the curriculum model, the center model, the individual model with a specialist or with a semi-specialist, and the virtual model, setting the stage for digital and face-to-face interventions. The second point on why we need to have skillful human intervention is the diversity of the target groups. Career guidance is challenged when it comes to marginalized groups, when it comes to providing support to invisible or to all different categories of clients like migrants, ethnic minorities, needs, low-skilled workers, or unemployed adults, or different marginalized groups. So career guidance for different target groups need to be considered for skillful human intervention. Also, a very recent UNICEF report indicates that half of the world's population has no online access, including 360 million young people. So digital divide should always be in our minds when we think about the services that we plan to provide. Next slide, please. And also, when we think about why we need to have skillful human intervention, we know that individuals are unique and have different levels of readiness when seeking assistance for career concerns and engaging in the career decision-making process. Individuals with high levels of readiness can do with self-help services, but individuals with moderate or lower levels of readiness need brief staff assistant services at different levels. And when we think about the counseling process, next slide, please. When we think about the counseling process, which is designed to help individuals live healthier and happier lives, and when we look at it from physiological psychology perspective, human presence and contact in helping process contributes to healthy level of a neurotransmitter dopamine in the individual system, and that increases motivation and energy to interact and to sort of get into a different mood. And as we all know, the majority of communication is nonverbal, and research indicates that 55%, and some research indicate a higher percentage, that most of the communication pertaining to feelings and attitude is conveyed through facial expression, through nonverbal communication. Please, next slide. So the response to this challenge is differential service delivery. Depending on the individual's levels of readiness to career decision-making and the diversity of the individuals and their unique set of circumstances, differential service delivery could be our way forward in a way. So now, how we could mix and balance for the most effective and fruitful personalized guidance. Next slide, please. Yeah, how to mix and balance. To start with, let me mention and let me emphasize that this is not either or, this is and. So a common strategy is to rationalize career support services through a combination of blended delivery channels, as indicated by most of you in the poll. So the right combination depends on the user's needs, their infrastructure, the context that they have been brought up, and usually depending on the actual life situations of the individual service users, we can find the right combination. Also, mostly access to face-to-face interaction tends to be reserved for users with greatest needs, as when we refer back to the invisible, to the marginalized groups, you know, they need this face-to-face support maybe more than some of the other groups with higher levels of readiness. And also flexible services delivered via multiple channels seem to be effective and respond to the different needs of different target groups. And as final words, we can just say that this should be a blended service. And also, as my final words, we could argue that the art of AI is most successful when human interface relationships are integral to the developmental process. Thank you all, and look forward to the chat and the questions. Thank you. And now I hand over to Marie. Marie, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. That was just so much fun to learn about what's going on in AI in the world of work and in career services. Now we're going to take a look at it kind of from the other side of the chair and how AI is being used in hiring. So there's a hiring process that you can see over on your slide on the right, and all of the ways that AI and different types of AI are working throughout this process. So we start at the top with sourcing. So how do employers find candidates? And we'll look a little bit at how AI is being used in sourcing, but it's being used to improve the job descriptions, to find people out on the internet that might fit this position that I have open. And then it's being used in the next phase for screening. And this is looking at the resumes in an applicant tracking system and really understanding that AI is improving how those systems read documents. Then in interviewing, how is AI being used in the interviewing process, especially now that most of interviewing is happening virtually. This has taken a huge step up in popularity now. We're seeing more systems that are being used to screen people through these virtual interviews, and they're using AI to do that. And then somewhat in the selection process down at the bottom in the background check and automating that where companies can. And of course, the idea here from the HR perspective is to get the best candidate with the least amount of effort from the human, because the human is busy managing the relationships. So some of you have been talking in the chat, right? The human needs to manage the relationships. So in polls of recruiters say, no, this AI is not going to take our jobs, but it is going to mean that we'll be doing different tasks and the AI will take over some of these other tasks, perhaps being able to source and screen and interview the clients at the beginning of the process, and we're managing the relationship throughout. And that's the hope of the human resources person. Of course, the job seeker experiences that differently. They can experience this process as being impersonal. They don't get to talk to someone. They're frustrated with the technology. And us as career service providers really understanding and helping them move through the technology is important. So on the second slide, we have the ways that people are using this in sourcing. And Nina, you mentioned at the very beginning that there's services out there analyzing tweets and analyzing what tweets are doing to the financial markets. In the same vein, there are services out there analyzing our social media activity and telling companies what that says about our personality. So these systems might grade our online profiles and our posts, our comments, anything that's publicly available to be able to tell the company about our personality. And this has been going on for a long time. Started with a system about 5 years ago, 6 years ago now, called Crystal Knows, that would grade your social media activity and then tell someone how they should approach you in a sales conversation. And this has advanced, and now you've got screening systems for employment, sourcing systems for employment that are out there looking at your social media activity and thinking in their AI way, will this person be a good fit for our job? What are their personality characteristics? And we may not even be aware that our activity is being graded in that way by some of these systems. So if we look at the next slide here, this is some of the other ways that AI is being used in the screening process. So 99% of the Fortune 500 companies are using applicant tracking systems. That means that they're taking in a resume, they're grading it, they're scoring it. I have some fascinating videos that I'll share with you in the digital resources where it's companies talking about their systems and how AI works in their applicant tracking system. It's really important for us, if we're helping job seekers apply, to understand how those systems work. And some of these systems are, again, going out to the web, collecting information and adding it to our profile, even if it's not on the resume that we submitted for that job. All the different types of applicant tracking systems is always a topic for us when we're trying to help clients with their resumes. What applicant tracking system works, what doesn't work in a resume. And it's really quite hard to answer because there's 200 plus systems on the market and we don't know what might work and what might not work. So I have some resources for that as well. What do you know? What can we know about an applicant tracking system, and how do we help our clients write the best resume to get through those applicant tracking systems? And then down here at the bottom, again, just talking about how AI goes out and gets more information than what might be submitted on the resume. And then lastly, HireVue is one of the largest systems looking at a digital interview. And this is AI technology that's analyzing your facial expressions. It's analyzing not just your answers, but also how you answer. And it's really fascinating to see how that is coming about. Now, I got to tell you, the presentation that I originally developed these slides for was all about bias in the hiring process and technology's role in maybe improving that bias, decreasing bias, or increasing bias. And the research has shown that it could do both. It depends on how the technology is developed. And of course, the humans that develop the technology bring their bias to it. So the hope is that as this technology gets better, it could be used to decrease bias. And in fact, one of the AI applicant tracking system videos that I watched, that was one of their main goals, was to remove the bias information so that when the hiring manager is looking at the profiles, they're getting the, is this person qualified or not, and having some of that information that can cause bias removed from the application. So does it improve bias? Does it not? Time will tell, but the overall goal of these systems is to help eliminate the personal bias that is very pervasive in human decisions in hiring. So in the next slide, just talk about some of the things we can do as career service providers to help our clients do this differently. And the first thing is, and you might be able to tell, I'm trying to take a positive approach to this because it's here. So how can we help our job seekers use it to their benefit? If systems are out there scanning the internet to see who's qualified for this job, then our clients need to have a good internet presence, one that communicates who they are, that's engaged with their interests, because they might be hired by a bicycling production company if they're talking about their interest in bicycling on the internet. That is the future, is people being able to search candidates that are more connected with their company values. But they can only do that, and our clients can only be found for those things if they are building their online presence thoughtfully and really creating posts and comments that mirror who they want to be, who they want to be seen. This doesn't mean we have to censor ourselves, but it does mean we're thoughtful about what we're putting out there, both in our own content and in the comments that we might share, and using that technology to our benefit as much as possible. And then on the next slide, thinking about how this comes through to resumes. A good resume is a good resume, whether it's a human or an applicant tracking system reading it. This means that we start with a clear focus and we're really clear about how we align with the job description. Then a robot is going to see that we align to the job description, and a human is going to see that we align to the job description. There are a few formatting challenges to watch out for in applicant tracking systems, but it's not as pervasive as the comments we read may have us believe. And as AI comes in, it's actually going to improve that. We're going to see better reading of a resume to see if it matches a job description, and less of people being kicked out because of silly formatting issues, because these systems are getting smarter and able to see when they're having those issues. And an HR person, human, is looking at most resumes, and they are going to see if that resume has been kicked out because of some formatting challenge. And most likely it's that the person didn't really connect with the job description, not because of the technology. And the last slide here, just looking at, what do we want to talk about in terms of video interviewing? It's really that they know the system. There's a ton out there on YouTube. They can figure out what system their interviewer might be using, do their research, and we as career service providers, of course, can help them prepare for those video interviews and understand what the technology is going to do so that they're not afraid of it, and that additional fear adds into what is already an interviewing fear and causes them to not do as well as they could do. Having that advanced knowledge and then preparing, how can they have as good of presence as possible on video? We know that that's going to be a work skill moving forward. No matter what happens, we are going to be doing more virtual work. So they can improve their skill in video presence. It will improve their work and it will improve their interview skills. So that's kind of from the other side of the chair, just thinking about how they are using AI on the hiring side and what that means for us as career service providers as we're helping our job seekers throughout the job search process. And I think we're now opening up for questions.
Thank you so much, Marie. That was brilliant. And thank you everybody as well for sounding great. We're going to have some questions here. I think one of the questions particularly that's bubbling up quite a lot, Marie, is around how candidates with disabilities work. I know that HireVue have worked with Integrate Autism in order to ensure that candidates with neurodiversity are able to go through the video hiring process. Is there anything else you can add to how how the kind of the hiring process using AI is perhaps opening up opportunities, or maybe even closing down opportunities to a range of different candidates?
Yeah, I think it's doing both, which is the challenge. One of the organizations that's doing, they're called micro internships for students and career launchers, so people at their early career, they're talking about how virtual interviews is really opening up opportunities geographically, because they were seeing companies go to specific schools or specific geographies, and people in urban areas, for instance, getting a lot more opportunity than for people in rural areas. And now with virtual and virtual work and virtual interviews, that has somewhat started to level that playing field. Of course, when you look at disabilities and people who may struggle with the computer, or even people who may be visually impaired and struggle with the computer, they're going to have more challenges. We hope, of course, that employers are thinking about how to accommodate those things in their process, and that someone can say, you know, how the video isn't going to work for me for this reason, and that they would have a parallel process set up to work people through that system.
For example,
And understand how the personal interaction comes in, right?
No, yeah, there was a question about if you've got a facial disability, then perhaps there's an alternative route for it. I mean, I just want to add my experience of it. Obviously, in the university, with thousands of students going through it, I think we've got about 60% of employers are using Highview or Arctic Shores or an organisation like that. And what we've done a little bit of analysis. People don't like it still, so they don't like talking to a screen because of that kind of, you know, not having that kind of expression of being talking to another candidate, talking to an interviewer. However, on the other side of it, we're seeing more candidates go through the selection process because the AI isn't perhaps looking at ethnicity, it's not gender, it's not because it might have blind recruitment, it's not looked at what university you've been through. So we're seeing candidates joining organisations that have not been traditionally hired before from different ethnic groups, different social mobility groups. So I think I'm a fan of AI hiring, actually, just to put it out there. But and it's great that Highview are looking at working with Integrate Autism as well, and that there's another alternative for people who have those things there. So I thank you for that. I'm just having a quick look through the chat. Anuradha, you asked about privacy. I wonder if I could put that forward to Graham, if you could put yourself off mute for a second. So, you know, if you've got you got your chat bot there, and things are going forward. What about where's the privacy of people using it? What do you do with all that data? Are you selling it to Facebook?
We're most certainly not selling it to Facebook, I can say that. In fact, it's a really great question, because we don't know yet. One thing we have the ability, obviously, is to ask people the questions any human careers advisor would ask them, which takes time, yeah. And obviously we could pass that information on potentially to a human in the future, but we have to look at the GDPR, and we have to think as well about the ownership and rights of that data. In my view, that data is owned by the client, essentially. So it's up to the client in that way, but we also have to look at the legal side, and we're trying to get a meeting at the moment, in fact, to sort out where we are legally with that data. So yes, there's a lot of data. And the second thing, of course, is if anonymized, that data can tell us an awful lot. An analysis of the total anonymized data can tell us an awful lot about what is happening in the local labour market and what services are being asked for. So that's a second use of data.
Thank you, Graham. If I can keep you on there at the moment, so a lot of people asking about the chatbot thing. Can it replace humans, or saying it can't replace humans? And can I just say before you go, where it can't yet. I don't know if you've all had a chance, people who are on this chat, to have a look at something called GPT-3. You can just Google GPT-3. It's a chat that's produced by OpenAI at about estimates between 4 and 10 million in it. Have a look at that. Have a look at the Guardian article, because the Guardian asked it to set up to write an article itself without any kind of thing. Just gave it a title, and the chat software produced that itself. Have a look, because you can see how far it's come. Graham, tell us about, are we going to be, as a chatbot, going to take our jobs?
Well, I mean, yes, the Guardian article is wonderful. So, I mean, it may take freelance writers' jobs in the future. My view actually is, in general, that AI and automation will not lead to so many jobs being replaced as been thought, but will lead to quite big changes in the tasks comprised within jobs. And I think that might be so as well for careers. It could be that the chatbot will do some of the stuff of getting that initial information together, finding some potentials. But the human being comes in with the empathy, the inquiry, and chatbots don't have empathy. Let's be very honest. We would design it to be as empathetic looking as possible, but they don't have empathy. So I would see it still as a digital assistant, and I'd actually think that jobs in, according to research, jobs in education and actually jobs in construction, places where predictability is rather lower, are some of the safer jobs for the future. But no, I don't think you take the job.
Thank you, Graham. Thank you. I've got two questions in here there, didn't I? Sneak them in. So thank you for that. I'm going to ask Suzanne, thank you for your presentation. Lots of people writing comments, and especially on the citations. I saw Anna cited there. It's fantastic. So Evelyn asked if I can go to her question. What if I could go to what you were talking about there, but asking a little bit more about the long-term vision, do you think, about working, you know, how in terms of jobs and technology? Is there a chance you could have a stab at that big question?
Mm-hmm. Of course, there will be a more expanded and more detailed vision and developments in relation to AI and in relation to big data and all the other developments. I think we will see very impressive developments in career planning and in hiring and in all these related dimensions with the new modes of career development. But I have the vision of having always the interface when needed, especially when considering the actual life situations of the individuals, some target groups, and the individuals' levels of readiness. I think it will be a nice blend, a nice augmentation, service provision in the future with I think, a holistic perspective and considering the total well-being of the individuals. Because one of the important missions of career guidance, career development, is to contribute to the total well-being of the individual, especially in those times and also aftermath of the pandemic. As career practitioners, as helping professionals, we need to consider supporting the individuals in their total well-being, which requires technology, but also a human being as well. I think the vision is a blended approach with a nice combination depending on the individual's unique, diversified needs and conditions. This is all I can say.
Kristen, how far are we? That sounds fantastic, and really enjoyed your talk as well. I've enjoyed everybody's talk, but how far away are we from that ability to offer that kind of holistic, rounded development to individuals? Or do you think we're...
Nima, last week we had, we are Dedri, myself and some others in this group are part of CEDEFOP's CareersNet expert group for developing career guidance all around Europe and the world. And 2 weeks ago, we had our annual meeting for 2 days. And actually, this is what we have been discussing, digital transformation in career development and this new way of doing things, this new vision. But I think we just don't have an answer for that because at different parts of the world, think about digital literacy, think about the infrastructures, think about all different target groups. I think at some parts of the world, maybe we are closer to this blended approach more than in some other parts of the world. The world is so big, so diversified, so complicated, and especially after the pandemic, it will get more, it will have more problems and more resource allocations and resource scarce of resources. So I think it depends on where we are in the world and the resources and the capacities and the unique circumstances of that context.
Thank you. I mean, that was particularly related to a question that Deirdre was asking about the careers community and how we come together, but and how we move forward. And she asked particularly about bots, but I think broadening it out, I think you've given us a really, really interesting article. I wonder, there's somebody who's scared to comment. I wonder if you wanted to put in the right. Who is there? Somebody that would? I'm now nervous to comment. Who's that? Come on, comment. We're waiting for you. Well, Marie, I'm going to come back to you then. While I'm just picking out some of the questions from here. So when we're looking at, I'm really interested in this form of expression, and I know some of the software around facial recognition, facial emotional reading and things, actually moving into Zoom. Everybody, it's moving into video conferencing. That this kind of software, AI software, will be able to be, you'll be able to sort of, organizations be able to read moods as you're having in this kind of conference. How we feel about that will be interesting to see how we take forward. But what we always find, I think, is that once something's created, there's always something that comes soon after to kind of hack it. And have you heard about organizations enabling people going through an AI applicant system who are kind of now hacking it in terms of like, this is how you have to answer, make sure you smile a lot because you come across as an extrovert, because they use Big Five personality tool, don't they? I think Highview, one of them. So can you give us some ideas on how, if you know it's being hacked at all, in terms of the support that we can give as career professionals? And we can't hear you. You're...
Sorry. The advice is really the same that we'd give people, even if they weren't being scored by AI, which is what I like about it, is that, the Big Five personality tools, yes, but when we tell someone to go into an interview, we're coaching them to, to be personable, to speak up, to be prepared for small talk, all of those basic communication skills. Those are going to be important no matter who is interviewing them. And that's nice, right? It does change a little bit because of the technology. I think it's really the technology fear that it's new and we may not understand it and it feels a little bit cold and impersonal. And those fears may really be what's getting in the way, not necessarily that we need to do anything different. So I see a lot of articles telling people how to hack it, but then I read their advice and I was like, well, that's just solid advice. That's what we've been telling people. Except for when it comes to resumes and applicant tracking systems, there is some not helpful advice around hacking those that makes people really vanilla out their format so much that they're not using the science, the neuroscience actually behind readability and what makes it easy for a human eye to read something. And you can still write a resume that's good readability for the human eye and goes through an applicant tracking system. So that's one area where I do see people talk about, hack the ATS, and they're providing some advice that hurts the candidate once they get to a human reviewing their resume. And we just don't have to do that to get through the applicant tracking system.
Thank you, Marie, and I'm really glad to be able to render the duty. Thank you also for being the sponsor for this session. It's been a really good. So thank you for sponsoring this. Thank you to all the panelists, Graham, Sam, and I'm going to thank myself because I was a panelist at the beginning, to say we really enjoyed it. Please do connect. I'm sure all of us will be happy to have connected with us on social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, whatever you fancy doing. So please be in touch and have a fantastic rest of the day. And thank you, Deirdre. Thank you, team behind the team, to get us all on the tech organised as well. So brilliant. Have a great day. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.